Hi guys, welcome back to Behind the Beauty. I'm very excited to have Kimberly Walker here today. She's best known for wine wipes and the managing partner and wine director at Granada Hotel and Bistro in San Luis Obispo in California. And I wanted to bring her on here today because you're an incredibly strong female entrepreneur who has done some amazing things. I just read your bio. And
thank you.
I think it's just always inspiring. I want my audience to learn from entrepreneurs, but specifically female entrepreneurs. So the main thing I think is wine wipes. If you guys don't know what wine wipes is, Kimberly, why don't you kind of walk us through what wine wipes are?
Sure. Thanks for having me first. But wine wipes remove red wine stains from your teeth. And most red wine drinkers know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. It's that sort of red film that ends up on your teeth after, anything from a few sips to a couple glasses of red wine. And I created the product because shortly after moving to wine country in San Luis Obispo, I started drinking red wine and noticed that I was one of those people that gets the red stain on my teeth, and there was really no solution out there. So I took matters into my own hands and created my own solution, which was wine wipes.
And how long ago did you create wine wipes?
10 years ago is when I started the company. It took... I didn't have a entrepreneurship background or a degree in business, so it took me a couple of years to put everything together, go through testing, create a formula that actually worked, and then made sure that it was something that could be, put on a shelf. It's created in an FDA, CDC, and EPA licensed facility. And also, really important to wine wipes was that it didn't interfere with the taste of wine. So that process took quite a long time as well to just make sure that I tested it on sommeliers and that they agreed that the taste of the wine wipes didn't interfere with their palate, which is really important for people who are serious about drinking wine. Mm-hmm. The aromas and the taste and the textures and all of the things that, people love so much about wine. I wanted to make sure that wine wipes didn't interfere with that.
Yeah, because that's a big challenge, I would think, because everything I can think of on the top of my mind is going to have like a minty or cinnamon or something to for your mouth. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, when there was this specific wine, it was a Syrah, this producer DeFranco up in San Luis Obispo. Which was my favorite wine at the time. I used to drink it at this local wine bar, and it would just stain my teeth horribly, even after a few sips. And I would try everything. I tried the toothbrush thing and realized through that experience that it ruined my palate. Mm-hmm. Brushing my teeth, that strong minty flavor afterwards. Wine just tastes horrible after that. I tried everything from using my finger to paper towels. I even once tried soap that was in the bathroom. Oh my God. I was so desperate. I mean, it's so unattractive, Yeah. And nothing really worked. So, it was really important to me that wine wipes didn't interfere with the stain. Oh, excuse me, with the flavor of wine. And so that it's and not only that, when a few years into the product being on the market, we got a request for a bunch of compacts from Dr. Oz.
Oh.
And at first we were like, okay, well, they just ordered, it was 20 compacts. And I thought, wow, either somebody over at Dr. Oz loves red wine or, they could be testing. And then a few months later, we noticed that our online orders started going off the charts and realized that Dr. Oz had just done basically a 5-minute segment on the health benefits and the red wine stains that, wine leaves on your teeth. And he basically concluded that people should either drink wine from a straw or use wine wipes when they are drinking red wine, because actually brushing your teeth isn't great for you either, because the harshness of the bristles actually make your teeth more porous when they're very sensitive from having that like high acid exposure from wine. So it was amazing, and it pretty much verified everything that we had been saying and believed in all of our testing. So it was a really great moment for the company.
That's amazing. That's like, do you know how he even found out, or how the production team even found out about?
I don't, because they don't really, I did find out, though, that the reason they ordered so many compacts is because they do their own internal testing on all of the products that they put on the show, which I thought was very cool. Mm-hmm. And, and then we never really heard from them again. But I thank him all the time. Yeah. in my office. I thank him all the
time. So that's amazing. It's been around for 10 years now. And when you say that you don't have any, like prior to this, you didn't have any entrepreneur background. So what gave you the confidence, or like just the drive to kind of be like, okay, this is missing in my life and I'm going to make it?
Well, at first it was the challenge of solving the problem. Mm-hmm. It was not, when I decided to figure out the solution, I didn't think about turning it into a business necessarily at that point. I was more just saw something that I thought I could figure out how to do on my own, and that sort of experimentation then led to a business just through that whole process, which took about a year. And then I started to think, okay, well, how do you run a business? What does that look like? And just really started researching what it's like to write a business plan. What sort of things do I need to be thinking about? And a lot of that came from, Google, mm-hmm. and buying books. And then there was a really great program in San Luis Obispo. There was a female head of Mission Community Bank, and she started a program for women who wanted to be entrepreneurs, and it was a free program, and it lasted 6 weeks, and they met twice a week, and really helped women entrepreneurs understand financials and the startup. And taking that program gave me a lot of confidence to at least be able to, talk to a manufacturer, talk to my local banker. That was really important. Mm-hmm. And then went for it.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was such an incredible experience, and just learning. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about rejection and sales and finances, and you name it. It's been, and I still learn stuff every single day, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get stuck in like overthinking the process of it, mm-hmm. versus just going for it.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to sit in your house or your office and think about things. Yeah. You can sit there and think about how to improve something, but really just getting it out there and then improving it as you go, it's a lot scarier. There's a lot more on the line. And so I think a lot of times, we can kind of think ourselves into a rabbit hole. Yeah. And then it's hard to get out.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's like action. I always think about that. Like, okay, what can I do to take action? How do I move the pendulum forward? And usually that involves, getting on the phone, going to visit a client, going to visit, a potential retailer or distributor. Mm-hmm. Usually, taking things outside of the office that really move things forward. And those are usually the things that are the most uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely. And then just, going and being like, okay, this is happening, and not, I mm-hmm. always find myself, I end up in places where I'm like, wait, what? And then I have to figure out how to accomplish it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I think that's important is like you can think and you can plan, but at the end of the day, you're not going to know how to execute it until you have to execute it.
Exactly. And then maybe then you don't even know, and you just do your best, the best you can, and then you learn from it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've learned as much, if not more, from my failures than I have from my successes. And I think that's, you know, really important to always keep in mind is that failure is just part of it. And to always, you know, take time to, look back on what went wrong and study that so you learn from it so you don't make the same mistake twice. And that, you know, I think the same thing about that with rejection. I mean, you know, doing sales, you know, walking into businesses, introducing them to a product is scary sometimes, you know, and learning from those rejections usually makes, you know, walking into other businesses easier. So
definitely.
Yeah, always a lot to learn.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like you were very passionate about this to begin with. And I think that's like the biggest thing is loving what you're doing and being passionate about it. Like this stemmed from your passion and love for wine.
Yeah. Everything I do kind of stems back to it. And I mean, I love wine. I'm not in love with wine, you know, but I do love the way it tastes. It's really fun to drink. But, you know, when I look at my, sort of my career choices, I'm like, like everything kind of goes back to wine. So yeah.
Well, it really is it is something that is very passion driven. Like when you learn about how wine is made and how it's really almost the craftsmanship and the knowledge someone has to have to essentially predict a vintage or, you know, all these different things. I'm not as knowledgeable about wine, but everything I hear about it, and I walked through like how champagne was made, and it's fascinating when you hear about it and how much passion and dedication and craftsmanship is involved.
I absolutely agree. I think a lot of why wine is so special and why so many people feel so strongly about it is that it is a living, breathing thing that's constantly changing, you know, inside and outside of the bottle. And it's the stories that go along with every wine. It's the story of the producers, the vineyard, the history that goes along with all of those sites. I mean, really knowing about wine is knowing about the history of the world. And so that it really intrigues a lot of people. I mean, you see those movies, you know, have you seen those documentaries, Somm? They're like about these contestants, or these, excuse me, not contestants, they're these like master sommeliers that are going for their level 4, which is very, very prestigious. And it's just incredible to see their knowledge and their passion. It's really inspiring. They're a great documentary series if you haven't seen it. Gets you excited to drink wine.
Is it available on Netflix?
I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. I know it's on iTunes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really they're fun documentaries for anyone who's interested in learning about wine.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so amazing to see anybody take that much care and passion and knowledge and turn it into a career, or be like so knowledgeable about one thing and truly love it. Like I think that's what's so amazing about the culture of wine and winemaking and just tasting. Like I just drink what I like because it tastes good to me. But, you know, like but when I talk to people who really enjoy the taste of wine or who know a little bit more, I'm just like, wow, okay. And I could be sipping it with you and I'll be like, okay, now I get it. Now this taste, this scent has a visceral memory to it.
Yeah, it's really fun to sort of see all the nuances, smell all the nuances in wine, and then plus when you pair it with food, that really brings out the best in both the wine and the food. Then it's a pleasurable dining experience, and most people love to eat and drink, so
yes,
very good pair.
So before you started Wine Wipes, what were you doing?
Well, I thought I wanted to be a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and through my early 20s, I was in LA trying to be a screenwriter and realized that I just should journal and get my writing, my love of writing out in that way, because there were infinitely more talented people than me, all going for the same, the same sort of thing to have your story on screen, or even, published in a book. So
Mm-hmm.
after I realized that that was not my calling, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I did everything. I moved up to San Luis Obispo, and I did anything that I could to, make rent. I was a temp. I sold radio ads. I just wrote for a local magazine. I did whatever I could to get by, and maybe that's why I was so open to just creating my own business with Wine Wife,
Uh-huh.
because I really didn't have anything else that I was passionate about, and so I would go to my 9 to 5 job. And then I would, at night when I'd come home, I would work on the formulas, and so I was really looking for something of interest. And then once I got involved and actually had the product and started selling it, I realized that I loved owning my own business. And so, once you find, something that you love, everything just kind of falls into place after that, I think. Then it's not work anymore. Then you're just, living a great life because you love everything that you're doing all the time.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And owning a business isn't right for everyone, but if it's right for you, it's like the best. It's not work.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not for everybody. I mean, it goes hand in hand. You have to have employers and you have to have employees, and making sure that you find the right people for those positions, then that's when the magic happens. You got to have both.
Yeah, definitely. We just hired our first employee this year, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do without you before?
Oh my God, it's so true, right? You're like, how? This is like a whole new day.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? You're keeping me on schedule and you're taking on the stuff that I could easily hand off to someone else? Like,
It's amazing.
yeah. She's actually coming back tomorrow because she was gone for a week on vacation. And I was like, I need her back. Like, how did I
Yeah,
do
you're like,
this?
how did I ever do this?
No, seriously, like, how did I ever do this? Because for the longest time, it was just me. And,
Mm.
people always think I'm insane because I create content, but I create content like almost daily.
Wow.
So, and they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think about it. But because I don't like if
Yeah,
I,
because you love it so much, right? You
yeah,
just it becomes more important than being comfortable, or um, you know kind of having more free time. You just love it.
yeah. And also I realize like the more I learn about myself, the smaller my group of friends are. Um, not in a bad way necessarily. But like I just know, there's like I don't have to be best friends with everybody. And
Yes.
my time is very valuable now because I don't have a lot of it that I'm willing to not be working or not be doing something to further what my goals are.
Mhm.
So, I have some very close friends that I make a huge effort to see whenever possible. And then there's like the ones that if I make it, I make it. It's not a big deal if I can't. So,
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
um, and I know that sounds kind of harsh, but I also think like as we grow in life, your immediate circle just becomes smaller.
Smaller and more important, and more valuable, I think.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
definitely see that. Like, as we get older, the sort of casual friendships just kind of, you don't have the same amount of energy to keep up those casual relationships because you just don't have as much time in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't even have kids yet, so I don't know how that would ever work out. Like, I might not even.
I know. I don't have children either. And I look, I have a lot of female friends that have kids, and I'm just like, oh my God, anytime I feel like I've taken on too much, I just look at them and say, you know what? I've got it easy. At least I can go home and just shut everything off.
Yeah.
And have a peaceful night's sleep. I don't have, the same amount of responsibility when I get home as well. So I think working moms are just the strongest women on the planet.
Agreed. I don't know how they do it at all.
Yeah, no, I really don't.
And they always just say you just do it because you have to. And I'm like, okay, that's not like selling me on this right now.
Yeah.
Like, I need.
Yeah, and the multitasking. They can be tying one's kid's shoes while like talking on the phone and like doing something else. I mean, it's really it's impressive.
Yeah. We talked about Wine Wipes, but I also want to talk about the fact that you are the managing partner and wine director at Granada Hotel and Bistro.
Yeah, so that actually, there's kind of a funny story to that. So when I started Wine Wipes, I was in my house and, working from home. I think I was working from home for like a year and a half, and finally got to that point where I was, okay, I need to hire somebody else to help me, because I was, this one woman show. I was, doing sales calls. I was packing orders. I was shipping. I was doing all the books. I mean, it was, like your experience, it gets really exhausting. And so I wanted to hire some help. I knew that I couldn't do that out of my house. So I rented this office downtown San Luis Obispo, where I live, in this it was like a halfway house of a building. It was like the eyesore of downtown San Luis. And so I knew the owner, and he said, hey, I'm going to tear down the building in a year anyways. So why don't you just, park your business in this space? If you don't mind that, I'm going to kick you out after a year, and I'll charge you really, really cheap rent. So I said, oh, okay, that's perfect. I'll take the deal. And after a few months of being in that space, I realized how expensive it is. My manufacturing time takes, it was like 90 days of, cash that I would be out, because I'd be manufacturing products. I was such a young business that I didn't have any terms with my suppliers, so everything was cash up front, and I couldn't get a loan because I was a, female business person with no assets and an unproven product. I mean, it was like this perfect storm of nightmare. And that same owner was like, hey, the place next to you is open, and why don't you just sell some wine out of there, open up a little wine bar, and then you can work at your office all day on your Wine Wipes, and then walk next door and, sell some wine at night, and you'll make money that way. And it was either that, or I go and get like a waitressing job or a bartending job. And I thought, you know what, this kind of sounds cool. At least I can just close up shop at Wine Wipes and walk next door and do that. So I did it. And I did that for, oh my gosh, almost 2 years. I would work at my office all day long, walk over to Granada, which is what I called the Little Bistro. It had four tables, and it was essentially a wine bar. I'd make paninis and cheese plates, because that's all I knew how to do. I was not a cook, but I could make a hot sandwich and sell wine and serve wine to, locals. There was only 4 tables, so it was never too overwhelming. And I hired my girlfriend to work with me, and we did that for 2 years until I was able to hire some other people. And then the owner ended up losing the property to the bank, and some friends of mine and I were at Burning Man, and we just decided that we were going to buy the building from the bank and save the bistro.
Oh my God.
And unlike most things at Burning Man, we actually came home and decided that we were going to, put into action that crazy idea that we had on the playa. And we bought the building from the bank, and it ended up, we turned it into a 17-room hotel and restaurant. And obviously, Wine Whites had to move out. Now we have a new office. But yeah, it was just, again, like one of these incredible experiences. And it's still running. We're now coming up on our 5th year in business. And yeah, it's great. I love it. The hospitality business is really fun.
That's amazing. That's such a crazy story, too.
I look back on it now and go, oh my God, I was truly insane. Like operating on 5 hours of sleep for like 2 years every single night. And I loved it. You know how sometimes you look back on things and at the time they were painful and then you look back on it and you're just like, oh, that was an amazing time in life. It was really great. So, yeah, I love it. The Granada is definitely like a second child next to Wine Whites. And they're just my 2 little babies.
But it's kind of perfect, too, because it's like Wine Wipes and then wine bar / hotel.
Oh, it's so funny. Problem, solution.
Yeah.
Like, here, let me sell you this red wine, get your teeth all stained, and then here's some Wine Whites for you. I know. It's really funny when you look at it that way.
Yeah, and I love that. I think maybe part of it was exhaustion and desperate need to like find a way out of it other than getting a serving job. But just being so open to suggestion and open to what I guess maybe the universe or people were telling you or suggesting.
Yeah, I think what you said is absolutely right. Staying open and being open-minded and making sure that, you recognize the sort of gifts that life can throw at you has always done well for me. Because I think, that you never know where life will take you, but you have to kind of stay open to seeing stuff, because we don't always know what's best for us. We don't always know what we should be doing, or at least I don't.
Yeah. I think the other thing is knowing it's okay to quit something. Like you had gone to LA to try and be a screenwriter, and I think the worst thing we can do to ourselves is staying at something because we told ourselves this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, you're right. It is true. And because we have these expectations for what our life is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just, we need to let go of them and really face the facts. And it was hard for me to face that fact. I think because I didn't have anything else that I was going to. And when you're in your early 20s and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to figure everything out right now.
Yeah.
Or else, I'm not going to, make it. And I think, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to know what we're supposed to do at all times. And it's just not reality,
No,
nobody knows.
No. And I think, not just putting it on ourselves, but I feel like school, I don't know about you, but my schooling, my growing up, the people I was around, it was what are you going to be when you grow up? And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Or what are you going to do when you grow up? And I went to a Catholic girls' high school, so I also had the bonus of what's your wedding going to look like? Let's plan your wedding. Let's pretend that you're a mom, because that's pretty much what you're going to be. Is you're going to get married and then you're going to have children. So here we're going to give you this fake baby that you can carry around for a couple weeks and make sure that, you have an intro into your role. And so that, that was really interesting too. But yeah, no, things are changing, obviously. I mean, women are the sort of the center of almost everything you hear on the news now is, women are going to rule this world sooner, if not later. And it's a great time to be a woman.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's also a very interesting time because as much as we sometimes forget how it wasn't that long ago,
No.
It was not that long ago where we couldn't vote.
Was not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was not that long ago. And the amount of progress, I mean, literally in the 10 years that it's been since I started my business, and going into banks and asking for money 10 years ago, I was literally laughed out of banks. I didn't have a co-signer. Who's gonna, we need a guarantor. We need somebody. Can't your parents do this? Do you have somebody else? I mean, and not to say that it's easy to get financing now, because it's not, but it was the delivery of the rejection that was very different than I think the rejection that we get even, 10 years later, which is not so much like, oh, what are you doing here? And because women are just, so many amazing women entrepreneurs and CEOs and women at the head of the table now. It's great to have all these role models to learn from.
Yeah. And, especially talking to you, who you started this 10 years ago. And then I talked to a couple other women who have seen it all, like seen it where it was challenging, where they couldn't be the CEO at the time, or they had to kind of leave where they were at and start their own thing, which is very scary if you think about like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So it's scary. It's so scary now.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's always scary, but like to think about it even back then when it's like not the norm. And I don't think it's necessarily the norm now, but the story is definitely out there that it is doable and possible.
Yeah, I think role models are so important, and it's great to see that the media and our storytellers and people who are getting messages out there. You see a lot more stories about women taking the lead and doing incredible things. And I think that is just so powerful, especially for young girls, who are learning from all these stories and these media influences. So yeah, I think it's a great time to be a woman.
Yeah. And I think we're also taking away that cattiness, or hopefully we're taking a step from being, I feel like sometimes we were always told to like kind of compete against each other, or and I feel like that stigma is slowly dying away.
Yep, I think so too. Yeah. I really do. I think women have realized that we are all in this together, and the only way we're going to break these major glass ceilings and keep them that way is if we all stand united and help each other. And it's great.
Yeah. And I just love how everybody I talk to is very supportive and very open, and not just to their own self, but to just like being open and open-minded about everything. So it's a really exciting time for everyone. I hope. I hope it is. I feel like it is. It's scary, but also very exciting. And I try not to look at too much of the negative side of things, but I think that's where it's forcing us to kind of take a stand.
No, I totally agree. It's easy to just focus on the negative, but I like you try to recognize it and then kind of put it away and focus on all the good stuff that's going on.
Yeah, and doing what you're doing, which is just being open, and like maybe you'll have, I don't know, a wine subscription service soon or something.
You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I have this like weird, I like businesses that allow me to drink wine. So,
so where can we find wine wipes? I know I see it online, but like specifically for the listeners, where can people pick it up?
Yeah, so we are available online at winewipes.com. We're also available through Amazon, and offline we're in Paper Sources nationwide and Total Wine and More's nationwide. This year we're also going to be in Bloomingdale's, which is really amazing. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, and then in just independent wine shops and wineries. A lot of wineries definitely throughout California carry wine wipes.
Okay.
And we just continue to grow. So hopefully they're in a store near your listeners.
Oh, and also just to clarify, they are cruelty free, correct?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yes, they are.
I read it, but I just wanted to make sure and confirm it. So if you guys are cruelty free, you can definitely use it. And also, you guys, you had it tested by dentists, so it's totally safe to use, right?
Yep. Yes, it's safe to use, and really made from natural ingredients. And so it doesn't have to be really complicated to remove the stain. The wine wipes do not whiten your teeth. They just have enough baking soda and a little bit of hydrogen peroxide to lift the stain from your teeth. But they're not, there's no harsh teeth whiteners or, or obscure ingredients that, that you can't read through on a label.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome, because that's another thing. It's like, what am I putting in my mouth right now?
Absolutely. No, I think, again, like, it's a really amazing time in the beauty world as well. We're really learning that a lot of the products that we've historically been using are not the best for us. So we definitely are conscious of that with our products.
That's amazing, especially since it is going on your teeth and in your mouth.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's it's not really a beauty product if it doesn't keep you looking good in the long run, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like, because I do talk a lot about, ingredients here on the podcast as well as on my channel, just because I think we do need to start to be a little bit more aware about what we're,
Absolutely.
And I love to hear that, wine wipes, even though technically it's not like a lipstick or anything like that, it's still safe.
Yes, it is safe.
So that's awesome. I'm so happy that you were able to come on here. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with my listeners and speak with me. So.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And so if you guys have any questions, I will have Kimberly's information as well as Wine Wipes website in the description box and the show notes of this episode. And don't forget to tune in every week for a new episode of Behind the Beauty. Thanks, guys.